evening, everyone, and welcome to the Geek podcast on this cold, wet, damp February evening. It's just me tonight, Peter V. Allison, so expect the laid-back, cool, and chilled edition of the Geek podcast because I can't do the bombast of Matt. So it's just me tonight, and joining me on the very special guest tonight is, well, man is an absolute machine. He just does not stop writing. It is sickeningly prolific. It is Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, Adrian, for those of you that have been living under a rock and do not know you or not listen to the Geek podcast, who are you? What do you do? What's your thing?
So, yes, I'm a science fiction and fantasy writer. I am best known for writing stories about giant spiders and outer space. But I tend to gad about all over that sort of genre space. I've got about 50 something books out now, novels and novellas together, in a variety of different series and for a variety of different publishers.
I like how you just casually say, I've got about 50 books out. It's a casual thing. Oh, just do that in spare time, you know.
Man, I came across someone on Blue Sky whose bio said that they had more than 500 books published, and I just you get to the point where you just have to nod and say, okay, I am beaten.
500.
Yeah, I don't know how that's actually possible. I know that some genres, the books are generally just a lot shorter anyway.
Yeah, I suppose, but well, I suppose like if it's a children's book, like, you know, for
I think they were a romance novelist, and they were certainly quite vociferously against AI. So it's apparently just like, actually they have done that many books. I mean, more power to them, honestly.
I'm just doing the maths in my head.
I know. I mean, the thing is, if I had my current writing speed,
yeah,
and if I had started at 15,
yeah,
I would not have anywhere near that number of books.
Well, I mean, assume that they're 70. They started at 20, so 50 years writing. That's 100 books a year.
No, 10 books a year. That would be 5,000 otherwise.
Oh, yeah, I can't do maths. 10 books a year.
5,000 books would be genuine. I would start to suspect some sort of AI involvement.
Might be something to do with AI. Yeah, 10 books a year. That's one book a month. That's 90,000 words.
I mean, the thing is, if it's romance novels are shorter. Novellas, it could be novella length stuff.
Yeah, true.
It would still be, it would still be a remarkable achievement. But if you literally just sat and wrote, and someone else just brought you meals occasionally,
that would not be much of a life, though. I mean, I don't know about you, but from a journalism, I can't just sit at my desk and write. I need to be out there meeting people, speaking to people, and interacting and experiencing things to kind of feed into what I'm writing about.
I mean, you can keep people, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the limiter for me is I have a well of inspiration, and once I've written a certain amount, usually once I've got through a particular sequence and to a particular beat, that will be dry, and then I will need to go off and do other things, and it will refill, ready for my next session. And I can push it a bit, but the more you push it, that you two tend to start running into quality issues.
Yeah, I mean, when you say go out and do other things, what for you is going away and doing other things?
I mean, sadly these days it's mostly editing, signing tip-in sheets, and all of the other barnacle stuff that accretes around actual writing. But I paint miniatures, I sketch, I'll go into town and talk to the guys at the Weimar shop, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen some of your sketches and they are amazing. I mean, generally amazing.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah, it's Inktober you get involved with, isn't it?
I do an October drawing thing, although it's I don't know why it's every one of those, hey, let's do a creative thing for a month, just turns out to be garbage after a while. It's just every single one is a milkshake duck in disguise.
I mean, there used to be NaNoWriMo. That was a kind of a creative month.
This is the NaNoWriMo
imploded.
I mean, stripped bare ass naked and ran through the streets shouting, "Look at me!" kind of. I mean, imploded feels almost rather more dignified than a hey, yeah, why not NaNoWriMo AI? I mean, you can have a thing that does NaNoWriMo in the background. Why you don't have to? I mean, what the is the point of that?
I was being polite, but I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. It was generally, yeah, we don't mind you using the eyes. Like, really?
It's just no. I mean, they were in partnership with it. Presumably there was. I'm assuming there was some sort of sponsorship thing, but it was just like,
Yeah,
this is literally the exact opposite of the thing you're supposed to be doing.
yeah, it's great to see. I mean, I'm part of ACLS, and it's great that then we are going to protest against this UK bill to.
Mate, I think we're all protesting against it.
Yeah,
I know, the Author Society, I'm sure everyone is going to do their best, but it seems to be a foregone conclusion, unfortunately, and it's going to be an absolute disaster. We're throwing away one of the strongest industries in the UK for a short-term grift that's going to leave us all immeasurably worse off.
Yes, I can't say anything more to that, but yes, absolutely, it is shocking.
I mean, the creative capital is something that the UK has always punched way above its weight on.
Yeah. There's a reason why, the UK literature and UK creators are so widely. Well, think back in the 90s when DC and Marvel were shipping Marvel comic book creators, UK comic book creators.
Yeah. But it's not even right. It's just right. Yeah, it's art, it's music, all of this sort of thing. The creative industry is almost ridiculously strong, and it's being kneecapped.
Because they're sharks in the game. Yeah, and this turned depressing, didn't it? Anyway, you're here tonight to talk about your new book and your book tour. So please, Shroud is the book, and it sounds fantastic. And yeah, please tell us more about it.
Okay, so yes, Shroud is it is not in any way in the same setting as Alien Clay, but it kind of works as a weird bit of companion piece because again, it's a bunch of people from a fairly unscrupulous human society running into a populated alien world, and hilarity and or tragedy ensuing. In the case of Shroud, the world is considerably less hospitable than Kiln was in Alien Clay. To wit, it is extremely high gravity, high pressure, zero oxygen content in the atmosphere, and completely dark because the atmosphere is extremely murky. And at the same time, it is alive with electromagnetic activity because all of the life form that have evolved there communicate and sense using the basically radio waves. So there was a crap ton of research involved in this, as you can imagine. But the plot revolves around after an accident in orbit, the two main characters in a rather experimental and not terribly durable exploration vehicle end up on the surface of the planet that nobody would ever in their right minds want to go to. And because of the way the local life works, they cannot tell the ship they're still alive. And so they have to basically make this epic sort of survival odyssey across the face of the planet to the one point where they can get word up, during which journey they come to the attention of the local life, and they start to try and understand what's going on with the life of this world, and the life tries to understand what's going on with them. So from the human point of view, it is a terribly traumatic sort of survival journey on an alien world, and from the alien point of view, it's a hilarious first contact novel.
That sounds brilliant. It sounds very tangentially similar to The Martian by Andy Weir, where Martian surviving on a planet that's crashing.
I mean,
elements, but there's a lot of new different elements in there. There's also,
I think they wish they were The Martian from Andy Weir.
That is true. Basically, The Martian on a hell world.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. It's. I think the thing is, it's a hell. The basic parameters of the world, are hellish. The life isn't. It's not like Death World style life in that. Oh yes, everything wants to eat a human, because that makes zero sense. In terms of sort of hard sci-fi, but the life is very weird. Okay. Life is very alien, and the life also, there is this enormous comprehension gap between the humans and the life on the planet. And there are sections, you get sections from the point of view of the alien life, working out what the hell this thing is that's just turned up that isn't built like anything on this world, and is putting out all of these weird signals and that kind of thing.
That must have been challenging to kind of write from an alien viewpoint and articulate it in such a way.
I mean, this is kind of what I do.
Fair point, yeah.
This is certainly, for various reasons, the most challenging iteration of it. But I'm trying to slowly work towards this kind of holy grail of writing, which would be to present something that is completely alien to a human readership in a way that is comprehensible. I don't know if you can put the poles of that magnet together, but that's kind of what I'm trying to Zeno's paradox my way towards.
Okay, I mean, I can see that throughout your career you've had this evolution of kind of bringing to the fore kind of increasingly alien and non-human viewpoints, but articulated in such a way that it's accessible for the.
Well, that's it. I mean, the thing is, going in with spiders is quite a relatively bold move. These things go because people hate spiders, and also spiders are quite non-human. So other things I've done, like say Rex in Dogs of War and things like that, are more comprehensible. I mean, it's kind of it's the fun thing. It is the challenge to be able to find those very old viewpoints and actually write from that perspective. And like I say, there is this sort of almost platonic ideal of that kind of book, which I am trying to close on with all of these.
Do you find you have to kind of to get in the headspace to kind of write from those perspectives? And how do you?
A lot of the big thing is the sensorium. I mean, especially in this, in this case, I've got a world where the sense capabilities of all the creatures are very, very different to anything on Earth. But once you can get your head around, well, right, what's coming in, what is significant, what are they going to notice, what is going to completely pass them by, then that gives you a really good basis for getting inside the head of anything non-human. I mean, that whole what is it like to be a bat thing, but and obviously whilst we'll never know, you can use that as the basis of your thought experiment, and that works very well to try and get yourself away from the human, really.
So you extrapolate based on their senses.
Yeah, you run the thought experiment basically.
Yeah,
and obviously, and you have to kind of keep doing so, because what happens is, as you go through the book, the temptation, the subconscious tendency will be to sort of stray back towards the human, and so you have to keep kind of reminding yourself what the axioms are that you're working with.
Yeah, I remember like Neil Asher once in an interview said, like, the way kind of when he's doing his editing, he kind of reads. He starts from the back, and then reads a sentence, and then just keeps going back through his book, reading backwards. So he never has that sort of momentum come in to kind of want to start coming from a human perspective.
Okay, that's an interesting way of going about it.
So which I thought was an interesting. I say it's just like, okay, I can see how it would work.
I can't imagine doing that at all, because I'm very, very. I mean, I usually write start to finish, and my writing is very informed by what do my readership know at this point. And therefore, and every so often
continuity.
Every so often I have to write a book which has multiple timelines, and at that point I have to write each timeline in order, and then sort of interweave them later, and that's nightmarish, trying to get it all in a row where you're not giving away things away too soon, or assuming knowledge that the reader hasn't picked up, and that kind of thing. It's really very fiddly. That usually means the book is going to take about twice as long.
Imagine fitting it in together so that it not only makes sense, but also thematic sense.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and obviously you have some sort of idea of where each section goes in the book, but I mean, frequently it does come down to the transfer of information is really hard to balance.
Yeah, what does the reader need to know? When do you want the big reveal? And how do you kind of chop them into such a way that it still makes sense when they're reading the book, and yet also makes sense from a chronological element? Yeah. Oh, again, like, so basically, I imagine you just kind of write out the story, then just chop it around, and then just make sure it all gels together.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it was kind of effectively like writing 3 longish novellas. and then having to mush them together into one book.
That must have been a headache.
It really was. Yeah, and I had quite a lot of ways. You know, I tried it various ways around. Eventually I got something I think works, but I'm still editing on that one, you know, after quite some while, after getting some feedback from my agent, basically about what works and what doesn't. So it's the sort of experience I like to try and avoid, honestly, because it does slow you down.
Yeah, and I mean, also, I mean, do you use Word for that? Or do you use like Scrivener?
No, I've only used Word so far. I'll continue to use Word until they finally decide that you don't have an option about using Copilot, at which point it'll probably end up as OpenOffice or something.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'd have jumped already, I suspect, but the publishing industry uses Word, and I don't know how well all of the comments and review stuff actually carry over.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunately essential to the way, you know, publishing edits go.
Yeah, I suppose if OpenOffice comes from a docx format and kind of will allow, you know, reviewing comments.
That's the thing. I mean, at some point I'll have to find out, I guess, because I genuinely feel we're not going to be able to keep turning the damn thing off.
Unfortunately, yeah, I'm getting loads of so many AI pop-ups now in everything, and I just don't want it. I just do not want it to switch off.
Well, before this call, Skype was trying to encourage me to use Copilot. I said, what in God's name for? What would this?
Yeah, I use Otter a fair bit when I'm transcribing interviews, which is this automated transcription system, which is great. Brilliant use of AI. Chuck in a recording, it gives me back a transcription of it. But then it's the point, oh, do you want a summary of it? No, I just want the quotes. Oh, well, we can provide you the pull-out elements. No, I just want to read it for the quotes. Oh, no, I just want the quotes. I just want the transcription. Yeah. Give me it. And it is getting everywhere now. I mean, there is uses for AI. There's been some recent research where an AI tool identified an easy way for quantum entanglement.
Yeah, right. I mean, but using AI to do, I mean, there's obviously an issue. The issue with, you know, any kind of AI is phenomenally energy inefficient and resource hungry. So I would rather save it for like essential medical use or quantum entanglement or something like that, rather than people using it to write their work emails or something like that. Because it's like, at that point, how much do you genuinely want to end up conniving at your own obsolescence? Seriously, at that point. And it's genuinely more energy efficient to have a human do these things than an AI. And also, I suspect in most cases, just genuinely more accurate and certainly no slower.
I will tell you one thing from just using Otter and AI transcription. It takes the slog out. I mean, where before it would take me 44 hours to transcribe an interview, it takes me 10 minutes, but I can't trust it. I still have to sit down and listen to the interview while going through the transcription to make sure it's accurate. The more technical it is, especially, and also if it's someone's got a strong accent, like strong Welsh, Geordie, whatever accent, it does not handle them well, and you'll just throw random words at you. So you can't trust it, absolutely not. And there's been several cases where AI has been used and people have assumed it was correct and accurate and appropriate and got themselves into trouble. There's a case in America where an American lawyer.
There have been a number of hilarious legal things where they've just said to the AI, get me some precedent for this case. And the AI said, fine, here it is, and just pulled it out of its ass. So
yeah, I was at a generative AI conference 18 months ago. I was invited there to cover it as a journalist. I thought, yeah, sure, I'll come along. And then but then about halfway through, said, oh, would you mind coming up on stage to be interviewed about the role of AI in the newsroom? And, okay, I'll do that. So I did. I said, oh, do you use AI? She says, well, yes, I use transcription service system to transcribe my interviews. Very easy. Oh, but do you use it for creating news articles? No, why would it do that? And the entire room just went silent. This AI evangelist all then that's going, I went down well there. But there's like a distinct subset of people that see AI as the great savior of humanity, and it's just, yeah, but you're not accurate.
I mean,
it's inefficient. It's energy intensive.
The idea of AI being the savior of humanity in that it can find non-intuitive solutions to problems, yes, but I don't think anyone's actually using it like that. Not in a significant way. It is just at the moment. It's just genuinely. Anyway, this is a very depressing topic. Let's move on to.
Yeah. Anyway, oh, actually, one thing I want to ask about is like the research you did for Shroud.
Mm-hmm.
You said you did a lot of research. I mean, I imagine exoplanets, space, deep space life.
Yeah, I mean, basically I was lucky enough to run at the EasterCon convention. I ran into a guy who had done a talk on non-standard biochemistry, non-Earth-like biochemistry, and the sort of parameters you need to make, say, a stable silicon-based system and things like that. And so he was along the next year. He did a talk about Venus. We got chatting, and I got to sit with him and just brainstorm for a couple of hours. And say, right, these are the things I need for the book. What sort of situation is going to give me this? And we worked out this situation of having a moon of a gas giant that was tidally locked. So because if you're a moon of a gas giant, there are various ways you're getting energy into the system that are nothing to do with the sun.
Yeah.
So you can have this completely dark world, and that's fine. And then you have some very interesting stuff because you're getting a lot of heat energy from the gas giant itself, but the planet is tidally locked, which gives you some wild weather systems as the hot and cold air chase each other around. And I got to speak to another chap who about the idea of, well, how would biological life make radio signals? And he said, oh, that's not a problem at all. You do this, this, and this. So it's basically my standard trick of just talking to the people who know, and that's the most efficient way of getting that kind of that information from their head into your head. Yeah. So I can go and write the book.
Yeah, much as the case, like you speak to those that know. You speak to the people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as well. It's like the fact that how can a creature make radio signals? Oh, that's easy. It's like, is it? How?
Yeah, apparently, biologically created piezoelectric crystals are not sort of hard, difficult science. And at that point, you can make your own radio waves, and then right. Well, we need antennae and thyroid, but obviously there are lots of biological systems that incorporate metals. So yeah, I mean, that was the bit I thought was going to be a real stretch, and that turned out to be quite easy.
Can you say what the real stretch was?
It was just the thing about saying, well, I want a decidedly non-Earth-like planet, and I want it to have life.
Yeah.
But I want that life to be very non-Earth-like. The problem is, as you start moving your parameters away from Earth, everything you moves everything else. And so what it is, it's as per the first lecture this chap gave, there are certain points where you hit a kind of a plateau, and that is, you can basically get a biochemistry going that this is now stable. And it, if you're not working off oxygen, what are you working off? You need maybe ammonia and methane and things like that, and then those are quite useful. And there are ways of kind of bootstrapping an energy economy up in that kind of situation. But it's and then you think, oh, it would be really useful to have a lot of hydrogen about, and then you think, well, all right, the problem with that is that hydrogen, being very light, escapes the gravity of the planet very easily. So you need some way to bind the hydrogen, and so it gets very, very technical, most of which I watched to reassure people is not in the book. But I did need to go through it all to basically satisfy myself, and I was describing something that was at least notionally possible.
Even when I've written my short stories, I've had reams of background information that had absolutely no bearing on the story.
Yeah,
but it acts as a foundation.
There's a genuine art form there's an art form in knowing stuff, and then there's an art form in not just vomiting that knowledge onto the page. You work out what is the absolute minimum of this stuff that needs to go into the book to show people that this is actually thought through and reasonable. But showing you're working in long form is usually the sort of the death of any kind of narrative pace.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I mean like when for Fox Hunt, in the Tales of Fox and Fae, I came up with this gun called the Stunner. And I just give an acronym, Stunner. But I came up with the entire what Stunner meant, the physics of it, how it worked, how it was non-lethal. I didn't use it in the story, but I said, yeah, they've got a Stunner, it stuns people. But it's like we spent a night, Kayla and I spent a night just kind of working out the physics of how a Stunner would work, which is great when you're engineers. How engineers have fun. So how would we make a stun weapon? Right, okay. This is how Warwick and I have fun. Just debate random ideas and make it up. But yeah, I mean, so how long did this book take to create, and from start to finish, from initial conception, writing, editing?
The initial conception of some of it was years previously, because the way I tend to kind of, I get ideas and I plant them, and then I will sort of add to them and tend them, and they will grow in bits and pieces. And sometimes two ideas will come together and say, oh yeah, they work together nicely to form, the basis of a book. And so it kind of slowly grew together. And then I knew it was what I knew I was going to want to start it in, say the next 6 months. And I got to talk to this guy, and that's when it really started accelerating. And after that, then I was writing it. And then once I started writing it, it varies how long it will take me to get a first draft done, but I try and aim for about 4 months if I can, and it can be less than that or it can be more than that, but that's the ideal, because that means I can kind of keep up my general sort of output.
I think that 3 to 4 months is sort of like the standard core writing time for a first draft, I find.
Yeah, I mean, well, it used to be about 6 for me when I was still working. So this is going full time. I can get it to 3 to 4. The thing is, because I do all the world building very much in depth beforehand, everything in that draft fits together if I've done my work properly, which means that there isn't really a second draft. There is an editing pass where I tighten it up.
Yeah.
But ideally, everything actually fits at that point. In this case, there were a few I had to tinker with the science a bit. I kind of ran it by my advisors, and they said, well, this bit doesn't work and that bit doesn't work. And thankfully, it wasn't anything that required a huge amount of rewriting, but there were a few bits I just hadn't understood when I was putting it together. But overall, I think the reason I keep my pace up is because I don't have a very long editing period, because everything is reasonably coherent at the end of that first draft, and the first draft and the submission draft are usually quite similar.
Yeah, you basically take the time beforehand to kind of plan it out, establish foundations, and really think it over.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is and also, I mean, it works. That work, obviously, everyone works differently in this sort of thing. That works for me because it's generally the world I am, whether it's sci-fi or fantasy, it's the world I'm interested in.
Yeah, it holds your interest, and therefore, if it holds your interest, you want to write about it.
Yeah.
I find it just interesting that you come up with one idea, then leave it, and just wait for it to kind of bounce off another idea.
Well, this is I mean, and sometimes it's just a matter of that idea just kind of attracts just extra thoughts. With its gravity until it's book size. But there have been a few times where I've actually had 2 completely separate ideas that I realize will complement each other very nicely. And no one ever called me on it, so it's obviously worked so far.
But don't knock it if it works. Yeah, and you also got promotion coming up for Shroud as well. I mean, how much does book promotion take up of your time as well?
I mean, I'm very lucky in that my current position with Pan Macmillan means that they have marketing people who do stuff.
Nice.
So, I mean, I'm doing a tour of bookshops later on in the end of February, beginning of March, for when Shroud comes out, and that is obviously a thing I'm physically doing. And also, I've had various kind of box loads of tip-in sheets turn up for me to sign, which is just, that's also a thing I do. I don't, I'm aware that eventually some authors just get to the point of using stamps and things like that. But I kind of feel that if people wish to pay for like nice editions or whatever, then I'm rather beholden to sign it myself. And if I get that much more successful and we get the numbers go up that much, then maybe I will change my mind on that. Beyond that, I am a dreadful self-promoter. I very much cringe at it. So I mean, I'm on one social media platform, which is Blue Sky. I don't really sort of beat the drum there, and I don't think it's a platform that responds terribly well to people doing so, honestly. So I'm very reliant on Pan Mac marketing the damn thing, and just on, by this point, having a readership who are kind of looking out for the next thing.
Yeah, it was very telling just how many people have, because creators specifically have moved from X or Shitter to Blue Sky.
Blue Sky seems to be the place. It's creators and science and even the political commentary crowd are now kind of on there. So it does seem to have become the main refuge for that. And certainly I'm getting to the point where I'm having those kind of rambling discussions on role-playing games and things like that I remember doing on Twitter back in the day, and the kind of per capita level of engagement you get seems to be considerably better than Twitter was.
Absolutely. It's whenever we posted anything on the Geek Pride channel on Shitter, it just sank without a trace. Anything, no matter what, no engagement. We posted on Blue Sky, we get loads of people chatting.
Yeah, and it's certainly not been perfect by any means, but it's notable that they are continually working on making it easier. So that when I joined, it was quite hard to work out where to start because there isn't anything immediately throwing stuff at you. But now you can look up all of these starter packs and you can say, right, I would like to follow some authors, please. And someone says, here are 100 authors, and you can get into the conversation that way quite easily.
Yeah, I found this starter box was a great little introductory package for newcomers, and my wife just literally just joined last week. And she said, who do I follow? I said, listen, they're starter packs.
Yeah.
She goes, so she kind of went through my friend list, looked up the starter box, and I'll follow them then.
Well, that's the other thing. You
find
someone you like, see who they're following.
Yeah.
Follow those people. And then that becomes another way of just getting a decently curated set of people who may have interesting things to say.
Yeah, and if we couldn't complete off topic of the book tour, I mean, obviously, is the Shroud tour your first one since COVID?
Sorry?
Is the Shroud book tour the first one since COVID?
Oh, we did one for around this time of last year for Alien Clay.
Right, yeah.
And I did one before that for City of Last Chances, I think, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
That, or the year before that.
That would have been around just after.
That would have been 22.
Right, so you're just
late 22.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I never had a book tour before then.
Oh wow!
It was not a thing I used to do. I hadn't really hit those kind of heights because a book tour is a relatively expensive thing for a publisher to put up. And so one hears about them, and certainly I think in the US it's much more of a standard thing.
Yeah.
Mostly I think because Americans are much happier traveling enormous distances.
That's true.
Just day after day after day after day. And they have a kind of a fortitude for that I think we don't have in this country. But so the book tour for City of Last Chances I think might have been my first serious one.
Wow. So how did you find it? I mean, was it everything you expected it to be?
It was mad. It was this week of I'm a public transport guy.
Yeah.
I get everywhere by trains. It was the week of the train strikes.
Oh no.
So it was a week of basically every morning you turn up at the station and just say, right, there's going to be a train eventually going to where I need to go. And I just need to wait here in November or December, in the biting cold, just waiting for that train to turn up, and then I'll get on that train, and then I'll go somewhere, and then I'll be kicking about there for however long. It was weird. It kind of actually, I felt a bit like being a very under-resourced band going on tour. That kind of. except it was just me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that was fun. I also got to see way more Christmas market. It must have been December, I guess. Way more
Yeah.
Christmas markets than I ever thought I'd need to see within a week. And yes, and the tour I did with Alien Clay last year was a great deal of fun, because I did that with Lauren Bucas, whose book Bridge was out at about the same time, which is an amazing book if people don't know it. And so it is genuinely quite nice to have someone around for that sort of thing. And you know, sometimes you'll go there and there'll be another author who's in on the event, who's local to that bookshop and that kind of thing. That's always fun.
Yeah. So it's almost going to be a bit of a networking event for you as well.
I mean, I never really think of it as networking.
Well, not even network. Well, just
yeah.
kind of hanging out with your peers and just.
I mean, obviously, writing is generally a fairly solitary profession, so I always appreciate being able to get together with other writers. So I like conventions, and I've got a Friday evening Zoom group I jump on occasionally, and this sort of thing.
Yeah. Are you going to Edge Lit this year?
I don't think so. So last year was a ridiculously busy year for conventions, both in country and with Worldcon.
Yeah, of course.
But also, I was gadding about across Europe, and it's lovely to be invited to things, but it does then start to have a bit of an impact on, well, both family and professional stuff, because you're constantly kind of being shunted from pillar to post. So this year, I'm doing a few. And obviously, we also have World Fantasy, and yes, of course, I'm doing World Fantasy, and of course, because it's not going to come around anywhere near me for probably another decade, I imagine. But I have turned down quite a few invitations to go places, because I need to knuckle down this year. This is going to sound insane, but this year is the first year I have been under serious deadline pressure since I got into print.
Oh,
I have always been ahead of the curve enough, because I started off with 4 books written, Shadows of the Atom, and I kept that lead for quite a while. And also I've been fast enough, but now everything is kind of caught up with me. So this year is very much a writing year. Can
you say anything about the books you've got coming up, as much as you can, subject to contracts?
Yeah. I mean, there's. I mean, it's worth. I mean, as you know, Bob, the books I'm writing now won't be seen on the shelves for like 2 years, because that's the kind of the cycle you run to in UK publishing. But I mean, so we've got obviously Shroud coming out at the end of this year, which you mentioned. There is then later on in the year we have, if I can remember all of this. So the other major novel is called Bee Speaker, which is the 3rd book in the Dogs of War series. There is the new Terrible World novella called The Hungry Gods, which is the hilarious story of what happens when all the space billionaires come back to the Earth they ruined after ruining space. So
I wonder where that idea came from.
Yeah. And then there's going to be a novella-sized book of fiction in the Tyrant Philosophers universe called Lives of Bitter Rain, which, especially if people enjoyed Days of Shattered Faith from the end of last year, which a lot of people seem to have done, which is rather nice. This is essentially the setup for that book. It's the early life of Angeli, the main character in that book. So from her childhood through her career in the diplomatic service, up to the point where Days of Shattered Faith kicks off. It is possibly the most me thing I ever wrote, because it was supposed to be just a brief series of vignettes, so I would get a handle on Angeli, because it was the first time in that series that a book had been so much about one character. And this brief series of vignettes, of course, became 40,000 words of novella. So and that's just I mean that's very me, I feel, but it's a whole extra novella, and I'm also at the moment writing short fiction in that setting, which I would like to collect at some point. So nice. At the moment the series is looking like it's going to be at least 5 novels and 2 shorter works. So I mean I'm writing the 4th book in the series at the moment, which is certifiably bonkers in some of the stuff that's happening in it. So other than that, there may be a Black Library book novel out this year, but I don't know the release date, so it may be next year. It's it's all a bit up in the air as to when anything comes out with Black Library. They play their cards very close to their chest. So I cannot talk about what that is. Suffice to say, it'll be my first actual full-length novel with them.
Okay, so but you did write a Gene Stealer novel back in...
Yes, novella. That's a novella.
Sorry.
I mean, it was 50K, so it was a long novella by award standard, but it was certainly a novella by my kind of light. So yes, that's Day of Ascension, and that was feels like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, we
must have been 21, 22.
Yeah.
And then I had another novella out as part of a collection of that and a bunch of shorter fiction in On the Shoulders of Giants, which is an Age of Sigmar book. And actually Age of Sigmar is kind of where I'm going now for a lot of the stuff I'm writing for them, because I know it's a bit of a divisive setting, certainly for people who are fans of the old world. But actually, I rather like it because there isn't that much high fantasy stuff, and Age of Sigmar is very high fantasy with the way it works, and that makes it very different in a lot of interesting ways to your standard sort of fantasy world.
Yeah, I mean, because the old world was obviously very dark fantasy, so you needed that contrast. And you can have both. I mean, if you want dark fantasy, go to the old Warhammer. If you want, high fantasy, Age of Sigmar.
But also, I mean, as far as writing fantasy in general, I think that the Warhammer old world, or Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and Warhammer Fantasy Battle and all that sort of thing, was enormously influential on the kind of the subsequent 90s grimdark sort of explosion.
Yeah.
Which means that actually there's a lot of fantasy out there that sort of has those sensibilities. It may not have the dwarves and the orcs and that kind of thing, but it still has that kind of feel of, it's a sort of very late medieval or very sort of Renaissance-y sort of world, and it's dark and grimy and everyone's betraying each other. And I mean, you could take I have no idea whether this is a direct inspiration for him, but you could take Best Served Cold by Abercrombie and fit that right into the Reich. Or Tilia. I mean, Tilia. I guess it would be there, and or maybe one of the characters is a goblin or something like that. But it's that book would work in that kind of setting very well. So I think that in a way the old world, there's a lot of old world toned fiction out there, even if it's not actually old world. So writing in something that's a bit more bizarre in the way that the Age of Sigmar kind of realms are bizarre is to me more interesting than doing old world style stuff,
because it's different. It's it's different to what is, and that's always appealed. Like, it's new, it's different, it's not been done before, or it's fresh ground for you to cover.
And then one of the things I'm doing with the Tyrant Philosophers series, and one of the things I was doing way back in Shadows of the Apt, is just the idea, well, all right, what does the world look like when the weird is your new normal? So there's a lot of magic in Tyrant Philosophers, but it's also a very low power, small scale, low stakes set of stories, because it's dealing with very ordinary people. It's just those ordinary people happen to live in an extraordinary world. And then you look at, all right, what does that mean for, what are the repercussions of the weirdness being, something you just live cheek by jowl? What are the repercussions of the fact that your factory doesn't have like steam engines, it has demons making all the machines go. And so rather than having someone in to repair the steam engines, you get basically a professional exorcist in to discipline the demons when they go wrong. And that's basically, and they're in the union, and it's just, that's the way things work. And I've come to have a real love of just the idea of making, rather than having magic as this weird exceptional thing in an otherwise fairly medievally sort of world, which is the way that it worked in a lot of fantasy stuff. It's just like, make the magic the foreground. So, give everyone insect powers, have everyone a shape changer, that kind of thing. And that means that your world becomes considerably more fantastical without you losing hold of the small stories and the little people.
I was reading City of Lost Chances.
Thank you.
I absolutely loved it. I love the fact that every chapter pretty much is a different character.
Yes, it's. I mean, I also, with that series, I'm experimenting with a mosaic sort of system, and I keep that up more or less. I mean, like I say, so Days of Shattered Faith, Angali is definitely the main character. But that she probably only gets about 40% of the book. because of the various other things that are going on. And it's certainly the fourth book is more of a full-on sort of ensemble mosaic sort of thing.
Yeah, but I'd like to say what you're saying about having like bringing in the Exorcist to deal with the demons in that factory, and they're unionized, and just how magic is a standard. Everyone just knows it. It's magic. Well, yeah, because but there is a standard. No, it's not in standardization. It's more like foundations of how it operates.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, the other thing is in City of Lost Chances, there is also magic that is beyond that kind of utility. So you've got like the Ghosts of the Reproach, which is just like, right, we are going to have this entire district of the city basically cordoned off because you will get possessed by horrible ghosts if you go in there, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And it's not something that's being caused by the people who are occupying the city. It's a problem that they're having to deal with as well. It's just, a bad thing happened at some point, and now we're living with it.
Yeah, it's basically in magical no man's land. Something happened there, and we have to deal with it, and we deal with it just by how we deal with it. And effectively, like it's a magical equivalent of Chernobyl. You wall it off, don't go in it, and steal it in this effect, and steal it off and stop anyone going in.
Yes, except of course, probably not that unlike Chernobyl. There's a lot of valuable stuff left in there, so people do go in.
Yeah, actually, also for Christmas, my family got me House of Open Wounds.
Oh yes, which is obviously the second one in that series. I've got to say, I think that's still my favorite, just because I fell absolutely in love with the little kind of found family set of characters.
That's what appealed to me when I was kind of when we were talking about it. I just love that. I like found family. I think that speaks to a lot of people. Like we have the family, but also we have the fine family that we encounter through life and that we bond with in a very different way, but probably in a much more fundamental and meaningful way.
Yeah, and they're all in that book. They're all quite prickly characters.
Yeah.
And they, on the face of it, they all kind of hate each other and none of them get on. But you do see that very much in that family way, just when the chips are absolutely down, they do kind of have each other's backs because they've got nobody else. In that book, they are magically capable medics who are basically under sentence of execution from the army that they are serving in, but they're kept around because they're useful. So they're in this phenomenally hostile environment, and it's getting more so as the war goes on. And so even though they absolutely are the sort of people who'd be at each other's throats under any other circumstances, they do become this rather weird sort of supportive family. And normally when you're doing edits on books, if people don't know, you get these books back from the editor 3 or so times, and usually by the second time you just never want to see the damn thing again.
Yeah.
And this was the exception. I was always overjoyed to get this book back from the editor because I wanted them to spend more time with those characters. I wanted to read through it again, and just enjoy their company and their bickering and their back and forth, and just doing mundane things in this weird world, just sitting there having meals together and just complaining about the standard of the theatre and things like that.
Bickering is very hard to do, but when done well, it's an absolute joy to read.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't do it on demand. It's got to come from the characters. The characters have got to be that kind of, and so I think that's the book where those characters, just the perfect group of characters turned up. It was going to be wall to wall repartee, basically.
Yeah, it's something that has to come from instinct rather than I'm going to do this quote. I'm going to have a quip here. No, it has to kind of just be come from inside.
Forced quippage is usually very, very. I mean, there was a whole period of British genre TV around the kind of the Merlin, Robin Hood sort of period, where you got a lot of that. Almost like, right, it's the end of the scene. If the end of the scene, this character is going to turn around and make a joke. And it's just like, and the quippage tends to be, and I think the key thing is it's stuff that is a joke being made by the writer and not by the character.
Yeah,
there was a bit in Merlin where, I mean, the thing with Merlin, like, he's a wizard, and basically, magic is basically a sentence of death illegal, and they accuse him of being a wizard, and he makes a joke, and no, I'm just got psychic powers, and just like, psychic powers are basically not a thing that anyone's going to have any kind of concept of in that setting, but it's sort of like it's a little it's a quip, haha, and it's just like that line does not come from that character in that world, and so it rings very, very hollow.
Yeah, I've read a few times when suddenly it just dropped me out. Hang on, why is that? What is that doing there? Why are you using that particular? There was just when I was watching the first season of Rings of Power, and talking about the project, I think this is like a high fantasy setting. Why are you using the term project? That is such a modern day business parlance, and just really threw me out. Like, what's project got to do with it?
Yes, nine spreadsheets for mortal men doomed to die.
Oh God. Oh God, that's good. I'm going to write that one. Well, actually, what you're saying about the found family and those prickly personalities coming together. Last night I was at the Stafford by Night, this Vampire the Masquerade LARP, funnily enough in Stafford, and I was part of Clan Tremere, which is all these kind of vampire wizards that everyone else pretty much hates because they're vampire wizards and they're and we just bicker with each other. We bicker all the time. It's like, well, I specialize in Babylonian scripture. Well, I specialize in multilingual Latin. I specialize in 90s goth, and so on and so forth. And then as soon as anyone picks on one of us or targets one of us, it's suddenly come together, band together, and suddenly, right, no, we are allowed to pick on him. You aren't.
Yeah.
But it's like those moments are priceless. Did you ever watch The Almighty Johnsons out of curiosity?
The what, sorry?
The Almighty Johnsons.
I don't think I've even heard of it.
It's a New Zealand TV series about 4 brothers, and the youngest of which finds out they are all the descendants of Norse gods.
Okay.
Right. All they want to do is be down the pub with their mates, having a drink. Unfortunately, the youngest finds out they're Odin, which has certain prophetic elements to it. Shenanigans ensue. Now, unfortunately, because of the descendants of Odin and this modern day, their powers are diluted over time, and also TV budget. So it doesn't rely on the effects. It just relies on the writing to deliver it, and it is some of the best bickering I've ever seen on television.
Cool. Okay.
And I really recommend it, but also they bicker with each other all the time. Ty is the descendant of Hod, the god of all things dark and cold, but all he can do is to make the room go a bit colder. And stuff like that, and they just really get on each other's nerves. But as soon as one of them gets targeted, in this case by Loki, they just band together. They don't no, this is family. We have a family. We look out for each other, and they turn up at the end of the scene, going, right, we're gonna outside Loki's house, going, right, we need to give Loki a kicking. But and just like that. Found that family element of we are family, it's you pick on us, pick one of us, you pick on all of us, and it's just like the way they kind of suddenly the all animosity between themselves just disappears and gets focused on this one person. But if you do get a chance to check it out, it's a really fun watch.
Cool. No, I mean I know New Zealand genre TV is obviously things like Wellington Paranormal and What We Do in the Shadows have been enormously enjoyable. So they've obviously got quite a good talent base over there.
I don't know who created it, but it's 3 seasons. The last season ends on a massive cliffhanger, and it's just God damn it. Obviously, it's about over 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna have to hunt around for it, but it's well worth looking around for, and I do recommend it because it's just that bickering is just so natural. It's basically 4 brothers bickering with each other, but underscored with Norse mythology.
Cool.
So anyway, we're nearly running out of time, so I want to quickly. So what have you got coming up? You've got obviously Shroud releasing at the end of the month.
We've gone through this year's releases all
Yeah.
4 to 5 of them. I mean, other than that, I've got a variety of conventions I am doing, even though I said I was trying to cut down. They're all, if my website is adriantchaikovsky.com, and if you go on there, it's got up to date sort of books, books written, book coming out, convention dates, things like that.
And the book tour on there. So I think you're coming to Nottingham, which is just over the road for me.
Yes, sir. Please come along.
I will do my best. I would like to be there, but life, childcare.
Oh yeah.
And okay, and people can find you on AdrianTchaikovsky.com.
AdrianTchaikovsky.com, which does have a contact form if you wanted to ask me anything. And social media wise, it's at aptshadow.bsky.social on Blue Sky is really my only sort of professional outlet.
So if anyone check Adrian Tchaikovsky out, he's a fantastic reader, sickeningly, horrendously prolific. I hate him so much for writing so much, but his books are just so damn good. Really check them out. Absolute massive fun. And City of Lost Chances, Shroud, House of Open Wounds, and also this Shadow the Up series. Just really check it out if you've got any interest in weird insects, humans, fantasy. Check it out. You're going to have an absolute blast with them. Anyway, this is Peter Elson saying thank you very much, Adrian, for coming on, and see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.